Before you go and submit a song to the label, you might want to listen to the catalog and learn a thing or two about what is it that makes their artist stand out. What is the specific type of sound that this label is going for? Because most labels have certain frames. And since I really love Liquicity type of drum and bass, and I work with that label since a really long time ago, I'm going to show you guys how to create a very typical, very Liquicity type of a bass sound. And I'm going to show you First, we're going to look into this short demo, and then I'm going to show you the layers and the process behind creating it. Let's get started, guys, and let's listen to this. Liquicity is one of my all-time favorite labels, and I'm going to teach you guys how to create a bass like this. So here's a really cool trick. We will need a few layers. That would be, well, 2 or 3 mid-bass layers and 1 sub-bass layer. So that is pretty much all there is to it. Then we're going to add a little bit of rift, maybe a little bit of thermal for distortion. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. So let's use a very basic drum loop from my sample pack. Yeah, this one is fine, okay? We're just going to use this one. Seems to be fitting the style. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new instance of Serum, and I'm going to call this a kick mid-bass. A lot of the times, what people do is they use the wavetable that is called Icon Has Kick, which is the one that is super popularized by Subfocus from one of his tutorials. But honestly, I would recommend you to go for a little bit more creative type of a sound. And instead of using that specific wavetable, which is really like one that every single person alive knows, it would be actually better to use something else. So you can see that Icon Has Kick is actually a perfect wavetable for like a really cool, like perky mid-bass, but instead you could use your own kick drum. So you can, like, let's take this one from my pack, for example, right? It sounds kind of different, which is exactly why we'll like it. It's a different wavetable, and we don't even need to do any sort of wavetable position changes. We can just choose one, and we can go and create a very short LFO on the low pass filter right here. So this is a good starting point. We need to make it a little bit longer though, because we want to go for the bam, bam, bam 4x4 type of a bass. Sorry for the drums. So we're going to, yeah, perhaps this is good. Now we're gonna go and equalize that because our wavetable has a lot of low ends, but not enough high information. So you can add a little bit of that. And I honestly do not recommend using a lot of stereo on that kind of sound or a lot of distortion, because we need to keep it as clean as possible. It is fine to use a little bit of soft clipping if you want here and there. Not something that I would do a lot of the times. I just stay away from that. And maybe a little bit of dimension to make it kind of a little bit wider, but not too wide, you know, so that you actually keep it in the middle of your mix. This is a very pointy sound and it has to be present. So we try to keep it that way. This is pretty good. Next thing we want to do is we want to put it on a separate mixer track called mid-bass. And right here, we are going to open an equalizer and we're going to cut out everything until like 200 Hertz. Next step, we want to create a very basic sawtooth layer, something that I do pretty much all the time because it seems to work. And it's a very similar sound, but it's just 2 wavetables, the 2 default wavetables essentially. So you are going to make like a similar LFO, turn on the filter, low pass, copy and paste the MIDI. Let's call it saw mid bass. And go 2 octaves lower. Good. It has a little bit too much low end because we need to separate the sub bass, and we're going to currently put it on the same mixer track. The only difference is that this bass in the background is kind of more in the background. We don't need to keep it that perky, that pointy. It's not so sharp, so we need to add some voices to add that fatness to the bass. So we're going to go for many unison voices here. I usually just go for 16. There you go. So you might want to keep it more open, like this. Sometimes you might want your cutoff position to be a little bit more closed. Very nice. We have a lot of rich stereo on the low mid and the mid, but at the same time we have cut out everything before 200 Hertz, so we can be kind of relaxed that there's going to be no conflict with the sub bass later on, which is pretty good. And at this point, what we want to do is we want to add a third layer, and I usually try and go creative on my third layer, but not too creative. So for example, I have a little deep house pack, which unfortunately consists only out of 2 labels, 2 presets. But yeah, in this folder, I have this really interesting, like another sawtooth, but it sounds a little bit different. So I would go and make it a little bit longer like this. So essentially it's like a second sawtooth layer, but it's slightly different. We're going to put it on the saw 2 mid bass. We're going to put it on the same mixer track, and we're going to copy and paste the same MIDI. And just try to make sure it's not too open. It's just an extra layer, don't forget about this. There you go. Yeah, next thing you do is you want to add a sub bass. So there's usually only one way of making sub basses for me. I do change harmonics every now and then, but generally speaking, it's a very simple sine wave with 0 randomness on its phase, slight pre-delay to avoid click. Then I'm copying the MIDI, and I go pretty low, and here I add a lot of soft clipper. This way the bass is a little bit louder and fatter, and sub bass we put it on a separate mixer track. And usually I like when my sub bass is a little bit louder than my mid basses. So with my mid basses, I'm gonna put them slightly behind so that it feels more heavy, like the bass is really hard on those samples. So let's play that together and try to balance things out correctly. Right, I want more pointiness in the bass, so this first layer, I'm gonna try to make it more open. I want to add even more high end here. And a little bit more, just a little bit more stereo. So that's how you make a bass like that. It's not very difficult. Now it's all about, you know, choosing the right octaves, choosing the right... Yeah, this is more... This is a little bit more fat. Choosing the right length of your LFOs is very crucial as well. The filters, just play around with it. Next thing you want to do is to add like maybe a thermal. I really like to actually use a default preset from thermal. You don't really have to think much, but it also does some heavy saturation. So whenever I need heavy saturation, I know exactly how thermal sounds, and I know exactly that this is going to work in this particular sound. So look at this, for example. It makes the bass even more open, but if you want it to sound a little bit more crazy, a lot of the times you need to add like another distortion. So we could use a rift and add a little bit of that extra spice. Just choose a weird, like maybe this waveform of a distortion. I sometimes go 2x. Not my favorite one. Let's try and choose something else. Yeah, this is, I like it when it's a little bit dirty. I actually like it when it's a little bit dirty, so we need to pull it back a little bit now. And last thing I do is after I put 2 distortions, I need to control some mids and a little bit of the high frequencies. So I'm gonna go create a little bit of that room for bass, because we now have a lot of stuff right here because of the distortions. So I'm gonna give a little bit of space here, gonna add something here. Maybe too much stuff here as well. You don't want the open high end as much, generally speaking, so maybe as much as I've been pushing that kick wavetable bass, I want to make sure that it's a little bit less super high ends like trebles, because it feels a little bit more natural, more musical to me. And now let's create a very short and basic melodical piece. Use this one called main lead. So now you can layer the leads and everything, and you kind of have a small basic idea. Let's play together with the drums, see how it sounds. Now let's drop the lead melody by 1 octave. Now you can regulate the general loudness of the mid bass, how hard you want it to be, how loud you want it to be in the mix. So this is a very good starting point to start making your song around. So if you're one of those guys who wants to create a drop first, this is a very good starting point. If you have any questions, or if you would like to join my mentorship program, connect with me via Discord. There's my Telegram as well. I'm always ready. This is my full-time job, guys. I'm ready to take new clients/students. So yeah, have a wonderful day and see you around.